not wearing a sundress, but I am wearing short sleeves. I'm so excited. This late in June in Chicago, it's finally starting to look a little bit like summer. So, let's talk, shall we? There is so much to talk about. It's really becoming a challenge for me to come up with topics for these because, yeah, there's so much to talk about. And if I really covered everything that was on my mind, I'd be here all day. I'm trying to be respectful of everyone's time, so I want to make these worth your while. I see you filing in. Hi, thanks for meeting me on here. Don't be, listen, you might get brought on camera, so don't jump up too high too fast. It's great to see everybody. Happy weekend. I am. The reason, let's get back to the subject. Because the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because of some things that have shown up in my inbox recently. Hey, Pete, glad to see you. Relative to people struggling in their relationships because they believe that they're not being enough, doing enough, they're disappointing their partners, they're letting themselves down because they believed that they were better partners than their mates are making them feel like they're being. And so they're disappointed in themselves as a result. And I find that this happens a lot in relationships. And we often, very often, go into them with this idea that we're supposed to make our mates happy, or we're supposed to be what they want us to be. We're supposed to do our best to be what they expect us to be so that they can be their happiest in a relationship with us. And what many of us overlook, fail to realize, maybe don't even consider, is that in itself is manipulation. We don't see it that way because our intent is positive. Our intent is loving. Our intent is giving. And we're doing what we've been conditioned to do. And because of that, we don't want to consider it manipulation because manipulation has such a negative feel to it. And we don't mean anything negative by it. We're literally doing our best to give our partners what they say they want. You know, many of us have waited a long time to get into relationships. Maybe it's been a long time between relationships. Maybe we just got out of a particularly toxic relationship and we're making a conscious effort to do things differently this time. And so when we do that and we put in all this effort trying to be different, trying to do it right this time, and all we get back is negative feedback. All we get back is what we're doing wrong. All we get back is argument after argument after argument about the one thing that didn't go the way they wanted it to go, while the 50 things that went exactly the way they were supposed to go never come up in the conversation. Our tendency to focus on the negative shows up in our relationships. The same way we go out of our way to complain about things in society that don't go the way we want them to go, especially in the retail sector or anytime we're paying for entertainment. You know, if it doesn't go the way we want it to go, we are quick to be loud and relentless about all the different ways that this wasn't that and that wasn't the other, and I didn't pay my money to get like this, and blah, 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 and all of that. I know you've seen it. It's only in social media every day, and most of us don't even have to go to social media to find it because it's right under the roof we live under every day. It's like we look for the stuff that makes us mad. We look for the stuff that we think is wrong, and that's what we focus our attention on, and that's what gets all of our energy and all of our time and all of our effort on what's wrong. And we rationalize it by saying, well, if I don't let them know what's wrong, then how are they going to get it right? Well, if I don't let them know what's wrong, then that means they're going to take advantage of me, or that means I'm weak, or that means they won, or that means I've lost my power. Even our language about this whole situation sets us up for failure. And then we wonder why our relationships are in such dismal condition. The fact is, even on our best day, on our very best day, if our partners are happy when they're with us, it's not because of what we're doing for them. That's not it. It's because we're being who we are and they're enjoying the view. It's because we're being authentic. We're doing exactly what we want to do. We're doing what makes sense for us. We're behaving according to what's important to us. We're being ourselves. Most authentic, unapologetic, being exactly who we are. And as a result of that, they enjoy it. That's the only way it happens. When our partners are happy with us, it's not because of us, it's because of them. We've been conditioned to believe, particularly in cases of infidelity, that if our partner steps out on us, it's because of some sort of failure or weakness or wrong in us. And it really doesn't have anything to do with us. It has everything to do with them. Here's why. I asked a question earlier this week that got some heated responses about an affair partner who was actually willing to talk to the betrayed spouse about the affair. And I asked the question, would you be willing to talk to them? And I got a lot of angry responses, understandably so. Here's one thing that often gets overlooked. After we get through being angry, many of us decide to stay. And we stay making an effort to restore the relationship to what it was before the betrayal. We try to get back to where we were. And we frustrate ourselves endlessly trying to do that. One, because it's not possible, but we don't want to believe that. Two, because even if we were able to do that, the one thing that we don't consider is that being who we were before is exactly what got us in the position to be betrayed now. So why on earth would you want to go back to that? No matter how good it felt to you, no matter how much sense it made to you, no matter how you thought everything was going well, that was the dynamic that made it possible for your partner to step out. Whatever the reason was, your partner stepped out on that dynamic, on the dynamic of whatever you had created before. So what is the logic in attempting to recreate that? It's very easy to go there, especially when you are the one who was betrayed, because you feel like you did what was right. Or at the very least, you didn't do what was wrong, right? And you feel justifiably so, like you've been violated and like you've been cheated out of what was promised to you. But because you have been. But what you don't consider is how all that happened. How it really happened. It didn't happen because she had a smaller waist and a bigger butt. It didn't happen because he had a bigger wallet and a nicer place to live. That's not why it happened. It didn't happen because his swag was tighter. It didn't happen because she was prettier and she was more submissive. That's not why it happened. It happened because your mate chose to make it happen. Or they went out of their way to make sure it happened. Or they just crossed a line that they never believed they would cross because the opportunity presented itself. But whatever the case is, it didn't have anything to do with you. And for my ladies in particular, who are always so tempted to blame the other woman, didn't have anything to do with her either. Because if it hadn't been her, it would have been somebody else. So don't make that mistake. Don't make the mistake of believing that there was something about her that was so amazing and so unusual and so something that you could never do or have never done or any of that. Don't make the mistake of believing that, because that's not what it is. It was just a choice. It was just a choice. A choice that had nothing to do with you. So, while you're marinating on that, I would like to back up just a little bit. We set ourselves up for failure when we decide that it is our job to be what our partners want us to be, to do what they say they want us to do. And then we tie ourselves into pretzels trying to do exactly that, and then we do it and they don't even want it. They want something else. And you think they want something else from you. And so every hoop they throw up for you to jump through, you find a new way to jump through it higher, faster, stronger than you jumped through the last million hoops that they threw up in front of you. And you torture yourself with this idea that, good grief, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I've done, and I've done, and I've given, and I've given, and I've been, and they're still not happy. What do I do? And that is not the right question. That is the question that will keep you on the hamster wheel. That is the question that will set you up for further failure. Trying to be what they want you to be. The truth is, what people want changes with the wind. Every time they blink, breathe, the weather changes, seasons change, situations in their lives change. They get older, things happen, and all of a sudden what they wanted before isn't what they want anymore. The reason why everything changes is because everything changes, including you. And that's why when you devote yourself to trying to be what somebody else wants you to be, you are on a perpetual hamster wheel, and you are continuing to jump through hoops that never stop, because the changes never stop. What they want never stops, and you couldn't be that anyway. They are with you for the same exact reason that they were with the person that they betrayed you for. How can that be, Eden? That doesn't make any sense. I'm here. I'm the one who's committed. I saw them through the hard times. I was their best friend. I was there when nobody else was there. I was that ride or die. I did everything that there was to do and then some. I sacrificed myself and my relationships with my family, my friends. I gave it all up. And I didn't just give it up once, I gave it up over and over again. What do you mean they're with me for the same reason they were with them? It's really pretty basic human nature. People stay with people because they like who they become in that person's presence. I don't stay with you because of who you are. I stay with you because of how I feel about who I am when I'm with you. It's a very big difference. And that is why people have affairs. They're not looking for another partner, they're looking for another self. They're looking for another experience of themselves. They're looking for an experience of themselves that they don't have when they're with you. That's why it doesn't pay for you to try to be everything that they say they want you to be. That's why it isn't possible for you to do that. And that is why it is a setup for perpetual failure. On the other hand, if you go into your relationship or if you change how you view the relationship you're in, and remember that all you can ever do is be who you actually are, it will change the dynamic of your relationship. If you show up for the express purpose of being the best possible version of who you really are, then you give what feels authentic for you to give. You give what makes sense for you to give. You are what makes sense for you to be. You have what makes sense for you to have. You show up in ways that fit your soul. You show up in ways that make your personality make sense. You show up in ways that are comfortable for you. You stay in the place of, this is who I am, and I've completely accepted that, and I'm here to share that with you. And however you process it, whatever good thing comes out of it, I'm here to celebrate that with you. As it pertains to today's topic, I am confused by your statement. I should not be. I'm sorry, the sun is glaring on the screen. I'm trying to read it, Donette. Dorette, forgive me. I should not be to my husband what he wants and needs and expects, and he should not be to me what I want and need and expect. If I need and gently request for my spouse to be a protector, that request sets our relationship up for failure. Shouldn't you ask for what you need in a relationship, even as your expectations change? Please expound. Thank you for asking. What I mean is, rather than going into a relationship for the purpose of being what your partner needs and expects and wants, you should go in honoring what's important to you and make sure that you evaluate the other person to make sure that they have the same priorities. So that if you expect a protector and a provider for your relationship, then make sure it's a priority for him to be a protector and a provider. Not because you asked for it, but because that's a priority for him. whether he's talking to you or anybody else, whether he's with you or somebody else. That he is not trying to turn himself into somebody he isn't in order to be somebody that you want him to be. That's what I mean. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that you don't have a right to what you want in a relationship. You absolutely do. That's why we get into these partnerships in the first place. Where we fall off, where we get sidetracked, is when we make a decision first that that's who I want, and then we get into a relationship with them and spend the entire relationship trying to make them be what we want them to be for us. That's how we get it backwards. The only way relationships are sustainable, long-term, happy, healthy, loving relationships is when both people show up and they live according to what their priorities are for themselves, not what your priorities are. So if you want a provider and a protector and that's not important to him, and then you go into correction mode trying to convince him that that's what he needs to be for you, that's a setup for failure. The best thing to do at that point is for you to be with somebody who has the same priority or who has a corresponding priority. Those are the relationships that last the longest, that work the best, where you see them 20, 30, 40 years later walking around holding hands and giggling at each other like they've just been on their first date. That's the dynamic that's happening between them. Both of those people are being exactly who they are. And the good thing about that is that who they are fits with what their partners expect them to be, what their partners require in order to feel emotionally safe, or to feel comfortable, or to feel sane and serene inside that relationship. That's the way it works. Getting into the relationship first and trying to manipulate your partner into being what you want them to be later is how relationships fail, and fail miserably. It's only when people are honest with themselves about who they are, and they show up that way in every relationship they have, and they're willing to allow the relationship to develop or not organically. Because everybody that you're attracted to, you're not supposed to be in a relationship with anyway. Good dates don't necessarily make good mates. It's an entirely different skill set to build a solid relationship than it takes to go on a good date or even to go on a good vacation. But that's a different video. I don't want to keep you all here too long. But thank you for asking, Thor, I hope that cleared up at least some of the questions. Of course, I can't be too definitive on Facebook because my time is limited and it's just a video. But I did want to at least address that question because I thought it was a very good question. And I'm sure you weren't the only one who had it. So thank you for sharing it and showing up to write it all down for me to refer to. I'm sure it'll be helpful to others as well. Thank you. So if anybody else has a question or a comment, please feel free to leave it. I will definitely be back to talk about it more later. Oh, hi Dorette. Sorry. Okay, here we go. But I respectfully disagree. No need to be sorry. Before my husband and I married, he was not taught to be a protector and provider, therefore he had no concept. When I informed him of the importance of being a protector to me, he understood and obliged. I don't see that as a disagreement, Dorette. I really don't. Because you don't know what you don't know. If he didn't know, then he couldn't disagree with it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not as if it wasn't a priority for him. He just didn't know that it should have been a priority. He didn't know that it was something that he needed to pay attention to. You brought it to his attention, and here's the line right here. He understood and obliged. That's as good as it gets. That's all any of us can do. That's really all any of us can do. Because none of us knows everything that we need to know to be in a healthy relationship with anybody anyway. And all we can do once we find out, in order to continue the relationship anyway, is to understand and oblige. Or not. But we have to be honest about that part. It's just part of the evolution that we all go through in relationships. If we're open to it, we learn, we grow, we become even better versions of ourselves. But if we're not, we set up a dynamic for perpetual frustration and misery. And it doesn't have to be that way. If we're just honest with ourselves about what our priorities are in order to be in any relationship. It's a little hot. Sorry, but I can't see my screen through my sunglasses. Harry, my 16-year-old son, said, "Preach," he said, "you can't deny common sense advice." Hug him for me. I haven't seen him in forever, and I love him so much. Please hug him for me. That's huge. That's huge. When a teenage dude shows up to shout you out, that's huge. Marriage needs to be taught by parents. Only if parents have healthy marriages themselves. Part of the reason why we have the dismal relationship dynamics that we do have is that miserable people continue to teach the misery that they live. And they teach it as normal because that's what they've been living. And while it's familiar, it doesn't necessarily mean it works. We have to get out of this habit of giving participation trophies to people just because they walk down the aisle and got a license. And if they serve a 20-year sentence or a 30-year sentence or 40-year sentence or more, we can't shout that out as if they've done something significant just by lasting together. The point is to get into a relationship that actually works to the benefit of the two people involved in it. The relationship has to be an environment that allows you to become the best version of who you are inside that relationship. And if it's not, then that's not something that we want to teach to our young people because they'll just duplicate the misery when they get older. So marriage needs to be taught by people who have a healthy, whole, and holistic view of how to make a marriage work for both of the people in it. And that really is determined case by case, couple by couple, person by person. But just being a parent doesn't mean that you have that knowledge. Because a lot of parents don't. And it's not necessarily because they did something wrong. It's just because they didn't have a template to follow. And they were making it up as they went along. And they made a lot of emotional decisions that led them in destructive paths. So, yes, it needs to be taught, but we need to be careful about who teaches it and what they pass on, because the misery does get cyclical and generational if we allow it to. Dorette, but you stated to stop trying to be what they want. He is to me what I want and need because I informed him of what I need. Otherwise, he would not have known. Absolutely. I agree with that. Otherwise, he would not have known because he hadn't seen it before you pointed out to him. However, just because you pointed it out to him didn't mean he had to do it. He chose to do it because it felt authentic to him. He understood and he obliged. He didn't just oblige. He understood it. He accepted it. He made it part of himself. And it became who he is as a man. So he's not just doing it for you. He's not just doing it for you. He's doing it because it makes sense to him. If he had married someone else, then he may not be doing that. So definitely, it's true that you're the one that brought it to his attention, and he's doing it because you brought it to his attention. Because you don't know what you don't know. But once he knew, he accepted it, and he started living it. So he's not pretending for you. He's not pretending for you. He's being who is authentic for him to be. And that's as good as it gets. It's like, I totally agree. My husband did not know to be a protector because he did not have a positive male in particular role model to teach him. That's an unfortunate fact for a lot of men. It just is. It's an unfortunate fact for a lot of men. They haven't seen what a healthy, whole, active, loving husband looks like. They haven't seen that. And that is a definite disadvantage. But as demonstrated by your own situation, it is not impossible to overcome. Personally, I'm ecstatic that you were able to do it because it's a big deal. It's a huge obstacle for a lot of people in other relationships. But you were able to overcome it and to make a happy, healthy relationship for yourself. And that's wonderful. That's beautiful. That's the best. That's as good as it gets. But he had to change in order to do that. He had to be willing to change. He had to be willing to evolve. We're all changing anyway, whether we do it intentionally or not. Just as time goes on, we become different people and we develop different priorities. But he was willing to do that early on, and it made it possible for the two of you to build a happy relationship all this time together. And that's awesome. That's exactly how it should work. And it's not gender specific. It works both ways. But people have to have hearts open enough and minds open enough to a new idea that they'd actually be willing to do something that they've never seen. They have to be willing to be someone they've never been. And that's a stumbling block for a lot of people. A lot of people just will not do that. And they have miserable relationships because of it. But that's a different video. Congratulations to you and your husband for making it work for both of you. That's the good part. That's the fun part about being in a relationship that actually works. So, thanks. He had to first recognize that change was required, and he made it happen, thank God. Yeah, I'm sure that was a big relief to you, and I totally agree. They have to be willing. If they're not willing, it doesn't matter how right you are. It just doesn't. If they're not willing, right doesn't matter. That's another mistake that we often make, is putting too much emphasis on being right. I mean, right is fine, but if they're not interested in being right, what does it get you? Everybody's not trying to be right. So, it was fortunate for you that you were with a man who actually wanted to be right with you and for you. Not everybody does that. I got the emails to prove it. But I'm happy for you and for everyone else who's actually made it to work. Because when it does work, there's nothing like it. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. There's nothing more beautiful. That's why people keep trying to make it work. They have some toxic ways of doing it sometimes, but that's why they keep trying. Anyway, I think I've kept you guys here long enough, particularly since I just popped in out of nowhere. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing your Sunday with me. And be sure to leave me a comment if you're catching this on the replay or however you're seeing it. Feel free to share it if you like. And let's continue this conversation because it's one that really is important and can make a big difference in a lot of relationships. this conversation isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Yes, Dorette, he wanted to be right for us, which is most important. I completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. And kudos to you for living in the benefit and the abundance of all of that. So thanks again for tuning in, Passionators. I'll be back for the comments that come in later, and I'll respond to those too. And enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Sorry I'm so shiny. It's a little hot out here. But I did want to stop by and at least love on you guys a little bit. So thanks for coming and hanging out with me. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and I'll be back soon. Bye-bye.